Hello and welcome to the Michael Clark Show podcast, where every Wednesday I'll bring you an interview with a different special guest. Many will be from the world of sport. All of them have a story worth sharing. In a time when doom and gloom is all too easy to find, this is a place where we'll be promoting the positive. So I hope you'll keep me company each week as I explore where our guests get their motivation and inspiration from to succeed. Welcome along to episode 10 of the podcast, and I'm kitted out in a Northern Ireland jersey tonight since we have a Northern Ireland international on with us this week. A very warm welcome to you, Trevor Carson.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael. I was going to wear my own Northern Ireland top, but I thought that would be a bit too over the top, so I've just left it.
I think both of us would rather you were in the Northern Ireland squad at the minute, so how is your injury, first of all?
Yeah, it's been a frustrating one, really. I come back a bit early, I think, from my operation, and I come back and played on Boxing Day, and I just wasn't ready. It's something I've been guilty of all my career, sort of, come rushing back too early and playing through injuries, and it's sort of come back to bite me in the arse this time. So, but yeah, it's just been sort of 3 months of complete rest, and not even allowed to walk, or because I actually fractured like my top of my tibia, just as a knock-on from the knee injury, and so it's just given that time to heal. But the last couple of weeks, it's definitely, it was frustrating the first couple of months because I was thinking I'm doing nothing here and I'm still feeling no improvement. But the last couple of weeks, I've definitely felt a lot of improvement in it, so it's encouraging. So still the aim is to get back pre-season.
How hard is that to sit and watch, other people playing football? You're watching Motherwell, obviously, getting on with business, Northern Ireland too, and you're on the sidelines. That can never be easy.
Nah, it's not. It's so hard. You can never, I think the last few years have been, it's been a very testing time for me. And I think I've learned how to deal with it better. This time around, I've tried to, focus on the positives instead of, when I had the blood clot, I came back, and that was bad enough being out for 6 months, but then coming back and, the fellow who took my place just, in the form of his life, and I couldn't get a game. So that, I had 18 months of sort of watching from the sides, but, it's tough. It's always tough, but, you just got to, control the controllables and, just come back as fit as I can.
And it's a sickener when your season started as well as it had done as well. I know Coleraine fans won't thank me for the reminder, but a hat-trick of penalty saves in a Europa League shootout is spectacular for any goalkeeper.
Yeah, them sort of memories where, whenever I was out with a blood clot or out for 18 months without playing, they're the memories, when you're sitting in the house on a Saturday afternoon, you think, am I ever going to get them back? And and that's what I got to take out of, this injury or this spell on the sidelines, that, there was times where I doubted ever coming back and playing again, and a day I come back and played against Norway for Northern Ireland, that, obviously had that memorable night at Coleraine that, I'll never forget. So, as I say, I'm learning from past experiences, so I know, there's a lot more to come from me when I get fit, and it's just important to, keep focused and keep positive.
Before we go anywhere else, you finally got your mural in Killyleagh. Thank goodness.
Finally, I don't know, the government must have released some of that sport, that funding, did they? Because it's been a long time coming. But no, listen, it's a great honour, It's quite surreal seeing it, and, just being up there, obviously the only one I remember playing and played with was David Healy, but the other two are obviously legends as well. And it's just something I can, my 2-year-old son hasn't seen me play football yet, so that's something I can show him in 5 or 6 years' time and say, just remind him that his dad actually did just to play football. So no, it's a great honour.
It looks the part as well, I have to say, and it does look like you, which is something I think everybody's nervous about when anything like that's commissioned.
Oh, I've seen some horrors in the past, obviously Ronaldo's, have you seen that? The statue of him, that is, but I don't think Healy was too happy with his either, to be honest. I don't know where they got the photo from, but, no disrespect to whoever drew it, by the way. It's a lot better than what I could do, but I think, I think the Dundee, I've always wound them up about having a big head, but I think it's took it to the extreme there in that picture.
Luckily, you're in proportion in yours, and you finally got your place. It must have felt like agony because it was due to happen a long time ago, and obviously your international debut got delayed and all the rest of it. Were you ever thinking, is this just going to be a wee corner that I'm never going to feature on?
Obviously, there was times, I always seemed to think it was, I always used to put it down to bad luck and say I was cursed with Northern Ireland, but, it is what it is. We had top-class goalkeepers ahead of me, and, I maybe made the wrong decisions at time in my career, to go to places and play where maybe I should have, or, stayed at a higher level or whatever it was. I just sort of, I've only myself to blame. It certainly wasn't, there was times where maybe I was getting a bit bitter and thinking, but the older I get now with experience, I just realised that, and listen, the way it happened, that getting it at 30-year-old, and, I don't know how it would have felt at 20, but, at 30, I can't explain how, just how grateful I was for it, and just how happy it made me feel and how proud. So, everything happens for a reason. So, I wouldn't change it one bit. Obviously, I'd love to have a lot more caps than 6, but, if someone had told me growing up, I'll get 1 cap for Northern Ireland, I would have, I'd have bit your hand off.
Well, fingers crossed there's a good few more to come as well, Trevor. Let's not write you off just yet. You're,
no, definitely.
Plenty more years in the tank, I think.
Oh, definitely. That's, as I say, being out with this injury, it's made me, I have sort of took a step back, and, I have been guilty in the past of maybe, looking on the glass half empty at times. I don't know whether it's the way things have went in my career over the last few years, and you can sort of feel sorry for yourself and think, but it done me no good the last time when I was out injured and, out of the team. So, I've got a completely different mindset now, and I know I've got so much more to give, just get back for next season, and, I know it's up to myself that, I can make it happen. So, I'm going to do all I can.
I believe you were the first player in 40 years, age 30 or over, to make their debut for Northern Ireland. Peter Rafferty was the last one, so it was a while ago. So there's even a wee bit of history, just you getting out onto the pitch that day.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah. Do you know, it's funny you say that, because I played this game with my daughter. It's 2 truths and 1 lie. So one of my truths, which I thought was true, so she's going to pull me up on this now. I thought I was the oldest ever Northern Ireland player to win his first cap. Mike Taylor actually told me that, because I think he...
You might still be. I'll need to double check your date of birth.
Well, that's because
he was almost 30. He was almost 31, I think.
Right. No, I think I was just turned 30. It was like a couple of weeks after my 30th. So,
well, we'll blame Mike Taylor. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time someone's done that.
You know what? Because Mike was obviously the goalie coach whenever I made my debut, so he was the one saying, because he told me he held the previous record. So,
well, you're probably the oldest goalkeeper.
Maybe that was it. Maybe so. Yeah.
Because obviously Rafferty was a defender, wasn't he? So
yeah.
Oldest goalkeeper, you can have that one, I think.
I'll tell my daughter that, so she'll be. She'll not. Anyway, but.
I tell you what, my memory of that day was, and obviously, like, it meant a lot more to you because it was your international debut. That was my brother's stag do, and I had got him and his mates and my dad into the game. Now, we paid for the tickets. I'd love to pretend we got them handed to us, but we didn't. We paid for the tickets, but we got sort of better seats through a few friends. We watched that game, and obviously magic because of Paul Smith's goal and what that meant too. But it was nice to be there for that moment in your career as well, Trevor, I have to say, because, any Northern Ireland fan that's followed your career knows what you've been through and would have been, just willing you to have a good game, and you did.
Yeah, obviously for me, you're saying about your stag. For me, I think there was 27 of my family in the crowd. It was mental. It was a busload come up from Killyleagh, and my partner was there, my 1 kid, because my other child wasn't born, but it was just a surreal day. And another thing I've been guilty of in the past in my career, I think a lot of footballers do it. You don't take things in, even there when you say about Paul Smith's goal, it's that only reminded it for me. These things, I think that's what I'm going to do in the future. Just enjoy the experiences, because sometimes in football you can get caught up in a bit of a robotic mind and just like, this sort of, I don't know what it is, just the mentality of just going out and doing a job and that's it. But, I think you speak to a lot of ex-footballers and they say, just cherish every moment. So I think, I wish, some of the memories, the cup finals against Celtic, the beating Rangers in the semi-final, stuff like that, I cannot, I've got no recollection of it, until I watch a video or someone else talks about it. So, but yeah, maybe one day I'll sit down after my career and just go through it all and, take it in then.
It's such a cutthroat business, I guess, football, and there's so much pressure on professionals. And, well, anyone playing football feels pressure, but definitely at your level, it's hard to just absorb that moment and truly enjoy it, because there's always the next game and everything that brings.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you say, it's one week to the other. Sometimes you've got a game 2 or 3 days later. So, of course you can enjoy it, but, just the way, from a young age, like, you're sort of, it's molded into you that, the next game's the most important game, after 5 o'clock on a Saturday, regardless of the result, it's gone. So it's on to the next one. So, listen, some people can deal with it better than others, and some people can enjoy it and take it in. But for me, I've always been one that, I could have, the worst thing in the world going on in my life, and come 3 o'clock, I've got something in me that just switches. I've had some experiences where, even I remember when my daughter was born, it was so surreal. And, I remember coming off the pitch and I'd actually not forgot, but I just had no recollection until I'd seen you just obviously look at your phone and you looking at, just in them 90 minutes of football, you're just so fixated on, playing the game. And then I guess that's maybe why after a game you just, you're just emotionally drained, and sort of, it's just a bit of sometimes a relief, to go, if you don't make a mistake, you have a decent game and you win. I think, for me, I don't get a lot of joy from it. I guess the overwhelming feeling I get is sort of relief and, just content that, done the job, on to the next one, sort of thing, yeah.
That's incredible hearing that. Was that always the way you felt playing football? Was it like a switch on, switch off moment? Or when did that start becoming a thing, do you think?
I couldn't really pinpoint it at a certain time, but, I wouldn't say, I guess it could be, just speaking to my granda there last week, my granda was the one who took me everywhere, and, and we were sort of talking about, just reminiscing a bit about, your younger days growing up, and, and we went through my routine. So it was like, on a Saturday morning, I would play maybe 2 games. I'd play for Killyleagh, and then I'd go and play for St Andrews, or I'd play for Killyleagh under 10s and under 12s. And then on a Sunday, I would have Man United School of Excellence. On a Monday, I think Monday was my free night. I think there was one free night anyway. So a Tuesday would be up in Belfast at St Andrews. A Wednesday would be Man United School of Excellence in Lisburn. Thursday was back up to St Andrews, and a Friday night was Rangers School of Excellence, and then Saturday was your games again. And so it was just like, that was from 8-year-old for me, and it was just, I guess it just becomes a routine, a habit, and it just sort of, it's like anything. If you replicate something, it just becomes a habit. And then, especially from a young age, if you're in the schoolboys at maybe 14-year-old, they're important games. You're playing represent your country, and I guess the importance sort of brings with it the focus and the, that sort of element to it. So yeah, it's just second nature for me. I could have, I remember even playing for Northern Ireland under 21s. We played in Germany on a Friday night, and we beat 3-0, and I actually flew back. So I travelled all the night, flew back on the Saturday morning, no sleep at all. And I was on loan at Chesterfield at the time, and played on the Saturday in a big derby against Rotherham. And we won the game 1-0, and I didn't feel, for the 90 minutes, I felt sharp, I felt bright, and then after the game, it was just drained. Like, I think I think I went to bed about 8 or 9 o'clock that night and slept for about 13, 14 hours. It was just one of them things where for footballers, I think just when it comes to a game on a Saturday, 3 o'clock on a Saturday, you've just got that switch, and yeah.
That could be one of the good things about football too, can't it? And I feel sorry for anyone that isn't able to play at the minute, which is most people, let's be honest, because if you've maybe some stuff going on in your life that you want just a little break from, football gives you that, doesn't it? It just gives you that place where it's just the game, and for those 90 minutes, you can just get away.
Oh, definitely. For some it might not even. I know my brothers. They go to like the community centre on a Thursday night, play five-a-side, and that's their little. All their mates, and that's their little bull. Their little bulls, during the week, and I know they're missing it so much. And it's just an hour playing five-a-side. So yeah, it's massive, and I know you hear people saying there's too much of it on TV nowadays, but take it away and you'll quickly. But one thing I've definitely realised this season is fans make football, don't they? It's not the same without them. Even playing definitely a game, I've played at Ibrox, Celtic Park this year, and it just, if someone had told me, playing the competitive game at Ibrox 5 years ago, and not find it hard to get motivated, but just not have, not it being a great occasion and stuff, I wouldn't have believed you, but they just don't, the fans just, make it, and hopefully next year, all the clubs, all the players can sort of do something to show our appreciation for them. I don't know what's financially viable for clubs. Obviously, money's tight and stuff, but hopefully there's some sort of initiative there to get more numbers back, because, as I say, they definitely make the game. Like,
oh, 100%. It's kind of eerie, isn't it? Sometimes even like the night games when you go into a big stadium and it's just empty, and you think there's something not right about this at all.
No, definitely, and it's not even the motivation side of it. I sort of said motivation about Ibrox, and it's not that, because you've got your self motivation. You're playing for 3 points. You're all motivated, but it's just, I guess it just doesn't. None of the games I've played in this season, in front of an empty stadium. Even the Korean one. Like, even I was speaking to a family friend the other day. They're over here, and he's a big Motherwell fan, and I was saying to him, like, imagine there had been 2,000 Motherwell fans there, because that's how much fans Motherwell would have brought over for that game, and that would have been probably the most memorable night of my life, like, saving 3 penalties, whereas it happened, and it's sort of, you celebrate with your teammates, of course, but it's not the same. The big games I remember playing in, and the cup semi-final against Rangers, and just celebrating with the fans after, doing a little cringy thunderclap and stuff like that. But, they're memories, and you watch videos of it, and it still gets a hairs in the neck standing up. But, yeah, so, yeah, as I say, the quicker they get back, the better.
Yeah, and the good thing is it feels like we're not too far away from that now. It really does feel like we're on the right path, so fingers crossed that feeling is true, and we see that, because I know obviously the Carabao Cup final, if you look at what they're planning, the FA Cup final, they're talking about 8,000 for the Carabao Cup, even more for the FA Cup. So if that's the plans in England, surely Scotland, Northern Ireland, anywhere else, we're going to follow suit at some stage, not too far behind.
Yeah, fingers crossed, but you can never double guess the politicians nowadays, can you?
Let's not even try.
No, exactly. So yeah, leave it up to them. But yeah, fingers crossed.
You're saying about, your Grandad was the guy that drove you everywhere. It sounds like he did a fair bit of driving, Trevor.
Honestly, like, it's, my Grandad's the grumpiest man you'll ever meet, but and but he's just, honestly, I wouldn't be where I am. I actually get emotional, like, even because, he's been through a lot this year. Obviously, he's lost my granny, and it's been a tough year. So I think it hits home more for me, like, now what he's done for me, because he has since 8-9 year old. He's drove me all over the country, and there was even once I was down at Man United. We used to go down and play or train down in Dublin and stay like a residential for 4 or 5 days. So So he's drove me all the way to Dublin, and I've actually forgot my bag. I've been down with it. So I've got the hotel in Dublin, and he's actually drove the whole way back to Killyleagh, like 2 hours, him and my brother Carl, and they've come back down, and it actually worked out all right for him, because at that time, the Republic of Ireland squad used to always stay in this hotel. It was a hotel by the Dublin airport. I can't remember the name of it, but the Republic of Ireland team used to stay there, and so he got to see the likes of Roy Keane, Niall Quinn and stuff, and we still have a joke about it, because he he was walking about, and he had this bad habit of wearing his like boxers over his t-shirt. You know, he would tuck his t-shirt into his boxers instead of into his. So he had these frog boxers on. He's walking about this hotel with all the Republic of Ireland players, like, you know, in his element, like introducing himself, and he's got the frigging frog boxers sticking out. But yeah, my grand is, I want to say, the places we've been, and you know, and just as I say, like some of that Northern Ireland, my debut, that was just, you know, I was more emotional for him than myself, and because I remember after the game, the players' lounge, and you know, I've never seen my Grandad cry. You know, he's old fashioned, typical old fashioned man, but you know, I seen him filling up in the players' lounge after my debut, and you know, little things like that make it hit home for you that, you know, it's not just for yourself you do these things. You know, it's for people who made the sacrifices for you that, you know, I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for that.
That's a really lovely story, and it just goes to show you the importance of having those good role models and that support there, because, you know, particularly when you don't live in the Belfast area, it could be kind of easy to miss out on a lot of opportunities, whereas he was taking you, whether it was to Lisburn or wherever you were going, and he was making sure you were getting those chances. So he believed in you, first of all, but he was prepared to sacrifice his own time to make sure you got those opportunities.
Yeah, without doubt. And yeah, he always put my football ahead of, you know, anything that he wanted to do. I'm sure there was things he would rather done this Saturday morning than driving sometimes up to Londonderry, or, you know, to play for St Andrews, and you know, but he never give it a second thought. And you know,
Were your brothers ever jealous, Trevor? Were they like, "Oh, you're the favourite"?
No, not really, because they just didn't have the talent. they had to make do with walking down to the showgrounds in Killyleagh, so they didn't need a lift. But you know, but just like on it about my Grandad and about a game where we're talking just the last few months or so, I guess, when I've been out injured, and you know, reminiscing a bit about the younger days, and he's got this thing where he can't get over like a certain episode where he always feels guilty about pushing me too much as a youngster, and you know, and there's one episode where we were playing the Milk Cup and for County Down. I think I was 15 at the time, so that's a massive year well, it was back then, you know, because at 16 you go and sign scholarship forms in England or Scotland, whatever. So 15's a massive year. So I'd played in the Milk Cup for County Down, and at that time it looked like I was going to sign for Man United because I'd been on trial loads, and so I had like a week. So I had the Milk Cup for a week, and then I had a week in Man United lined up, and so that was it really. But I went and played the Milk Cup, done really well, and by the end of the week, you know, with scouts, you know what it's like. Scouts go up to parents. By the end of the Milk Cup, like my full summer was basically, you know, at Chelsea, Leeds, Everton, Sunderland, and then Man United, and they wanted to extend it for a 2-week trial then. So obviously, that's everyone's dream as a young, you know, you're thinking it's great, and there's just an episode where I think I'd been to United, or been to the Milk Cup for a week, straight to Man United for 2 weeks, back to Belfast for a day. I think I went to Leeds then for 4 or 5 days, back for a day again, back to Chelsea. And it was just, I think the Chelsea trial went really bad. I just had a bad week. I didn't impress, and I just think I had enough. And I remember, like, it didn't help that I think I had my first girlfriend on the go at the time as well. And as a young lad, you know, you get like,
what are we ever going to do? Yeah, end of the world stuff.
I just remember like coming back, and in the car from the airport to Killyleagh, just sending my grand. I was supposed to go to Hearts, or was it I think it was Sunderland the next day or 2 days after, and I was like, I'm not going. Like, I don't want to go, and he always regrets not making me go, but just saying like, he didn't do it. And it was just, but I say to him, like, Grandad, I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for that drive. And that's, for me, that's, I think, a good 70-80% of football is mindset and your will. And even at Sunderland, when I signed a scholar at Sunderland, out of the 8 of us that signed scholar at 16, you probably would have said I was least likely to get a professional after the 2 years. But I had that drive instilled in me, that determination. I was in the gym every day, and I just had that, and that came from my Grandad pushing me at times, and making sure I was in bed on the Friday night at 9 o'clock because I had a game this Saturday. Even though my brother's a year younger than me, he was allowed to stay out till 10 o'clock. But little things like that. But that for me, that's what's made me have the career I've had. Playing 350 league games, being captain of my country. Obviously a lot. You have to have a certain amount of ability, but for me, it was the drive. My Grandad and my mum instilled in me, and at times it was hard. Don't get me wrong, but I'm so grateful and thankful that I did have someone who did push me. And you hear nowadays it's a bit, kids are pushed too hard, and for me, kids get it easy nowadays. For me, you know what I mean. And I think there's a lot to be said for that sort of. If a kid wants to be a footballer, which I clearly did, right, you need push. It's not going to be easy, and that set me in good stead for my career.
Yeah, and I mean, if we look across your career, resiliency is something that comes up time and time again. And Sunderland was probably a great example of that, with 8 years at the club and different loan spells going out. What was that like for you as a player? Because obviously you're knocking on the first team door and you're getting on the bench sometimes, and you're behind good goalkeepers too. How do you cope with that as a professional? In any other position, it's a lot easier to get a run out than as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. I was looking back now. I wish I had. Obviously, hindsight's a great thing, and I wish I had a different mentality where, I was content sitting on the bench in the Premier League every week. For a year and a half, I was content doing that. Whereas now, looking back, I think, why are we content? Why did you not push harder? And I did. Like, I wasn't. I wasn't as focused as I would have been if I was playing every week. And the focus I have now when I'm a number one goalkeeper, where just that drive. And for me, it was, and I sort of see myself as a training goalie, or sitting on the bench on a Saturday in the Premier League. Like, this is great. No pressure. You still, getting your bonuses and stuff. It was just the wrong mentality I had. But it took me to go on a few loan spells to sort of get that hunger for it. And obviously, I don't want to jump to the end of my Sunderland career, but just the final nail for me was, so we played Man City on the Sunday, so I'd been on the bench all season to Simon Mignolet, but he had broken his cheekbone. So Kieran Westwood had played a few games, and Simon was supposed to be out for, I think, 8 weeks or something. So Westy played a couple of games, was doing really well. So we played City on the Sunday at home, but we used to stay in a hotel before home games as well. So we're at the hotel, and Westy actually comes up and knocks on the door about 8 or 9 o'clock, and he was like, and he looked awful. He was like, Trev, I'm going home, I'm sick. Like, I'm just up to wish you good luck for tomorrow. Like, you'll be, and I was like, what? Like, it was just surreal. So I remember like not knowing what was happening, but thinking, am I making my debut tomorrow in the Premier League? So it was a whirlwind few hours. Of the goalie coaches then come up and basically sat with me for half an hour, basically saying, enjoy the occasion, you're playing tomorrow, you're making your parent. And I didn't sleep a wink that night. I was trying to get my Grandad flights over for the game, and it was just a mad, but I just never forget the next morning going down for breakfast, and big Simon Mignolet he wasn't even in the squad because he's supposed to be out, but he's at breakfast with this big mad face mask on, and I'm 22, maybe 23 at the time, and I'll never forget. I can't remember some 90% of the games I've played in, but I can remember that moment at the Ramside Hotel in Durham, and seeing Big Simon sitting at the breakfast table, and just my heart sunk, and I just knew, and so obviously we'll get to the game, and the analyst guy comes up to me and he goes, the gaffer wants to see you. It's Martin O'Neill, the manager at the time, who I got on great with, and so I went in, and he's just put his arm around me. I'll never forget it, and just said, Trev, there's nothing I can say that will make. And I was like, why? Why not play me? You've had me on the bench all season, so what? And I'll never forget the words he says. I don't think you have the stature to play in a game like this. And my argument was, well, how am I ever going to get the stature? And people dream of little breaks. I guess I sit and think at times, if I had played that game. We won that game 1-0. I'll never forget the game. The boy, I think he was South Korean boy, D. He scored in the 90th minute, and Simon basically had nothing to do. He didn't have a save to make, and I think how my career might have went. If I made my Premier League debut, kept a clean sheet against Man City. It's just a sort of sliding doors thing, isn't it? Where you just don't know how it would have. But for me, it was just it was a final nail for me. I went from being content that, to thinking, oh my God, I need to catch myself on here. And the next day, genuinely, I went in and seen Martin O'Neill, and I was like, I'd been to Bury on loan previously and done really well, and they wanted me back, and they were willing to offer me like a 3-year deal and, a decent contract. And I was like, I'd sort of been hemming and hawing about it, but for me, that was the side. I just went and seen Martin O'Neill, and he wanted to keep me for another year. It offered me a contract on better money, and which I probably would have took had that episode not happened, on the Sunday where, if Wesley had just played and I was on the bench without all the drama down their contract. But that sort of just, made me realise that, you're 23 now, you're not a kid, you need to go and play games. And so
it's a big moment in your career, but in many ways it might have allowed you to have the career that you've had and to go on and become a first team goalkeeper, because as you say, you could have maybe just sat there, and then who knows how long that would have gone on for. Another manager might have said, well, we want a different backup goalkeeper.
Of course, yeah, there's no point. Obviously you're human, aren't you? You will sit and think about it at times, but there's no point torturing yourself thinking, because
it might have been a blessing, Trevor, really.
Yeah, of course. As I said, I don't want to sound like, I'm sort of undermining myself by saying, if someone had told me I'd have played one game growing up as a kid, you hear a lot of people say that, but genuinely, when you're 9 or 10 kicking the ball around with your mates, and, my career's, for me, growing up as a kid, it's far outweighed what my expectations. So, I'm grateful, but I'm still hungry for more. I do want more. And, as I say, I've still got that hunger to get back fit. And, I'm convinced there's plenty ahead.
There were some good managers at Sunderland. I was just wondering what your interactions were like, because Roy Keane was there, I think, during your time, wasn't he? The promotion season, with the championship and all. Steve Bruce, obviously, as well. What were they like? Easy to get on with? Or can you tell us a story about them?
Yeah, my first manager was Big Mick McCarthy, who was... Of
course, yeah.
Mick was, unreal, and it's great to see. I've sort of always had a soft spot with him. If someone's good with you, and he gave me my first professional contract, and, he was great and put me on. I was on the bench at 16 for Sunderland, against Leicester, and that was my first year. I was a scholar, and 60, 70 quid a week, and he put me on the bench ahead of a couple of older lads, because he obviously seen something in me, but and then gave me my first professional contract. So Mick was great. Obviously Roy Keane was next, wasn't
he? Yes.
That was a sort of, it was a strange time, because Niall Quinn had obviously took over and sort of give himself the job and then sacked himself. And then Keane's come in and obviously just brought an influx of players. And, I didn't, again, circumstances, little breaks. I think I was on the bench with the first team maybe 5 or 6 times under Keane. But, I was always training with the first team. I was always, with Keane, I always remember he always just to join in the 5-a-sides. And there was one game where, before the game, me and him were he was on my team, which was the dreaded, you didn't want him to be on your team because he was so demanding. But we were just passing the ball, 20 seconds before the game started, and he just walked up to me and he goes, "Just think, you can tell your grandkids you played with the greatest." So that's just something that always sticks out. One thing about him, he was so funny and witty, and, you get this sort of, you watch him on TV and, well, I think you do get a sort of sense of, he does have a bit of banter about him, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's like a dry humour, isn't it, that not everybody
dry,
gets?
Yeah, that's exactly what that was. Like, just think, you can tell your grandkids you played with the greatest. So, little things like that. And but as a manager, I'm not going to criticise Roy Keane, but I think at Sunderland, his first job, I think he probably learnt more, and took more from that first job than anything that could have prepared him, even his 15, 16-year playing career. I think that 2-3 years at Sunderland where, your name gets you a certain way, and then, just at times you can't, the way he speaks to people. And I think one thing he was guilty of, Roy Keane, was not being able to sort of fathom how people weren't on his level and didn't have his standards. And, and it's great that but not everyone can be a Roy Keane in training every day, and and not everyone wants to be as focused and driven as Roy Keane every day, and it's hard to get 5-6 players like that, never mind a squad of 20-30. So you're always going to have, and I think it's, there was a constant, a weekly thing where did you hear about the gaffer and thing today, or did you hear about the gaffer? It was so. Yeah, he was hard-headed, but me personally, any dealings I had with him were great.
I mean, that's a big thing in itself, isn't it, for a manager? It's that sort of emotional intelligence. And if you're someone that's played at the level Roy Keane has had, and that determination is natural to him,
yeah,
that's his mentality. So it must be so difficult to try and put your shoe on the other foot, but that's what great managers have to do.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's just the stories come up in my head about him. It's the most randomest. I'd been on loan at Chesterfield at the time. Was it Chesterfield or Lincoln? Anyway, it was one of them, and we played a Tuesday night game. And my brother is actually, him and his wife had a stillborn. So, it was a bit of a sad time. And this happened on the Monday or maybe, and I'd explained to the manager at Chesterfield, it was a guy, was it Liam Richardson, the manager was? And so I explained to him, he said, "Listen, play the game Tuesday, fly back Wednesday morning, come back Thursday night and train Friday." And, so that was that. And so we played the Tuesday night. I can't remember the game. I flew back. I landed back at East Midlands Airport on the Thursday night, and my phone went, and it was a withheld number. So on the Wednesday night, Sunderland had been playing the League Cup against Northampton. And only now I've heard the stories about what went on in the dressing room. Apparently it was like that's the night he slapped Dean Whitehead and threw a bottle, and it was a bit of a heated confrontation that night. I've read it in books and I've heard other players talking about it in podcasts.
Yeah.
But so my phones went on the Thursday night, and I answered the phone. He said, "Trevor, it's Roy Keane." And I was like, "All right, Gaffer, yeah." And I just didn't know what. He said, "I'm just ringing you to let you know. Remember who you're representing down now. You're representing Sunderland Football Club, so don't effing take liberties on anyone." And it just hung up the phone. I was like, to this day, I still don't know what had happened, or whether he'd rang the Chesterfield for a sort of update, how's Trevor doing, and they've sort of said, because I was doing really well at the time on the pitch, so maybe they'd said, "Listen, we've given him a couple of days off because." Or, he's done well. We've let him go. I don't know whether he was just thinking I'd just pulled the wool over their eyes and just went home for a couple of days. Or
Yeah.
I still, but it was just one of them where I just come off the phone thinking like, he's probably just had a bad day and thought, I'm gonna ring Trevor.
I'm going to ring Trevor and give off.
So it was just strange, but it just shows you how, like, that was about. I know it was like after 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening because I landed really late. It just shows you, like, he just never switches off, or he just has this, he must just live and sleep football.
I'll be really interested to see what he's like. There's rumours of him trying to get back into management. So if that does happen and materialise, how much he's changed, because we all, I guess, do. Even you reflecting on what you're like in your 30s versus early 20s, and how you look at things differently. So who knows? Maybe he's going to be a mild-mannered manager, but I kind of can't see it.
I don't think I would like to see that, would you? Like, it would be a hard watch seeing Roy Keane, but I think just getting a balance. Like, who am I to sort of give tips to Roy Keane? But I think he's so much to offer football. Even listening to him, it'd be great to see him back in management.
Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic. I really enjoy listening when he talks. Put it that way. So watch this space. Steve Bruce, he's under a bit of pressure as well at Newcastle. He's one of those people. A lot of people that have played under him or have worked with him or played with him seem to say this is what a lovely guy, what a really, really good person. I guess it's never nice to see anyone struggle, but what were your interactions like with him?
Yeah, again, I can only second what you're saying there. It's a great fella. Just sort of, I could relate to him because he's just sort of working class. Just you can tell he grew up in a rough street in Newcastle. I don't know where he grew up, but I just presume you can tell he's just down to earth, and that in itself gets players playing for you. If you can relate to someone, and you look at the likes Lee Cattermole, who he took everywhere with him in his career. It's, for me, it's just that bond they had where they could relate to each other. And that sort of Katz is one of the nicest lads you'll meet in football. Just a hard-working, honest professional, and I think that's sums Bruce up. What type of characters he liked, but yeah, there was a.
Hold on, Lee Cattermole. Everyone thinks Lee Cattermole must be horrible because he's like the hardest tackler that ever was born.
No,
Lee Cattermole's a nice guy.
Honestly, the nicest guy. And actually, my brother will second that because I remember one time he was over and we went to a pub just for a few beers and a Sunday dinner one time, and ended up hunting the cats, and he was out with a few. And my brother, still to this day, said, we'd stayed out with him for a few hours, and just the nicest, genuinest guy you'll meet, But do you know what? A bit like, I hear stories about Scott Brown about, apparently he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet, in the dressing room, around, even off the pitch. He's just I've never come across him, and he does strike me as that type of guy who's just but when he goes on the pitch, just something triggers. And, I would love someone like that in the team all day long. If they can go out for 90 minutes and become a horrible, nasty person and then turn into like, a gentleman, for me, that's a perfect blend, isn't it? So, but yeah, just back to Bruce, again, I had great memories with Bruce, and he gave me probably my first decent contract where I signed. It sort of came round and around about. It was a strange episode. I don't mind mentioning it. I actually had gambling issues, growing up as a kid, coming across from Northern Ireland. You have a lot of time in your hands, and I heard Big Roy Carroll speaking about his sort of addictions in the past, and I've no shame in saying I did have a gambling addiction. Got myself in pretty serious debt for the money. I wasn't earning big money at Sunderland at that time, and it was the end of the season, and I sort of I got myself mad, and I ended up having to go to the club, and Niall Quinn was the chairman at the time, and I've ended up ringing Niall and just and he couldn't have been, he literally called me over to the club. He said, come over, speak to me. And I'll never forget him. My mum will never forget him for what he done for me, because I was in a dark place then, and so he got me over. He said, listen, write down your debt, like what you owe, who you owe, And he said, just forget. I was like, no, I'll not forget. I'll pay you. I've got another year in my contract. I'll pay you back, deduct it from a wage or whatever. I just need to get my head above water for now and stuff. And he goes, no, the only way you can pay me back is Steve Bruce wants 3 international goalkeepers, for next season in the Premier League. He said, we've got 2. We've got Craig Gordon and Martin Phillip at the time, like a Scotland and Hungary international. He said he wants 1 more. So he said that's going to cost me, £5-6 million on wages and transfer fee. He said, so the only way you can pay me back is work your nuts off pre-season, show Steve Bruce what we all know, that you're good enough to be. And in my head, I was thinking, I was nowhere near the first team at the time, but I just remember every run I'd done that off season or trained like I've never trained before, and I just had Niall Quinn in my head the whole time and need to pay him back. And I've come back pre-season first day. The squad list goes up. I'm with the reserves training, so I'm not even with the first time. So straight away, I'm thinking, this is. But we were training for 2 weeks. I was with the Resis every day, and it was a Friday afternoon. We played Darlington. Well, the first team played Darlington in a pre-season friendly on the Saturday, and then flew to Portugal on the Sunday. And I was nowhere near the squad. Wasn't, but this is the God's truth. Craig Gordon and Martin Phillip got injured in the same training session on the Friday afternoon, honestly. And so I've ended up playing in the Darlington friendly, done really well. We beat them 2-0. I played 90 minutes, kept a clean sheet. And Bruce, I think this is the first time he's even known of me, know my name. And so he's, I've obviously impressed him enough to go to Portugal, flew to Portugal the next day. And I've ended up playing in a friendly against Benfica. I played 45 minutes, played against Brighton, who were staying in the same training camp. Played 60 minutes and that, done really well, both games. And just, I came back, and the day after I got back, I'd done really well. I trained well every day, and the day after I got back, an agent rings me. I didn't have an agent at the time. He rang me on behalf of Steve Bruce saying, listen, we want to offer you a 3-year contract. And it's just like in the space of 4 weeks, just everything, just from that Friday afternoon where Craig and Martin got injured, and that wouldn't have happened. It's just like how football's, you talk about locks and little breaks, and thankfully for 2-3 years, I was on the bench maybe 40-50 times in that space, and they didn't go and spend money on another keeper. And so it was sort of, I remember Niall Quinn, seeing him in the players' lounge after one of the home games, and he just come up and put his arm around me and sort of. But yeah, that gesture, what he done for me, it's something I'll never forget.
Well, that's a real mark of his character too, isn't it? That he knew you needed help and he wanted to help you, because let's face it, in football, you don't always get the help you need, and quite often people don't. So, and obviously you really needed it at that time too. In terms of your gambling addiction, and I don't want to dwell on it, Trevor, but
no, I'm happy talking about it, Michael. Yeah.
How bad are we talking?
I feel sick saying it now in terms of the Niall Quinn thing. You think that would have been, I was maybe 20 at the time, 19, 20. And, and I still gambled after that. It wasn't enough for me to give it up. It wasn't until I went to Cheltenham when I was 25, 26. I'd got married in July, moved to Cheltenham. And my marriage broke up maybe 2 months later. My partner at the time, she moved back to Newcastle, so I'm down in Cheltenham. I had a young daughter. She was only 1.5, 2 at the time. So wasn't it? And that's when my gambling really, that's when I hit rock bottom. Basically, I lost a lot of money, and actually, I didn't even contact the PFA. I remember Googling. And I went to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting for the first time in my life. It was a Tuesday night, the 10th of November, 2015, because I always remember the date. It's my last bet. It's the last time I had a bet. And, for me, just getting into that meeting and sitting around the circle, speaking to other people who had this addiction and illness, and that's what just sort of helped me. And I went to meetings. I still, do Zoom meetings now about it, and just to keep on top of it, because I always know I'm, I'm one bet away from, being in that dark place again. So, for me, just getting that help, and because I showed that I sort of, for years, I convinced myself maybe I didn't have a problem, or if I wanted to stop, I could stop, but I needed that help. I needed to go to, Gamblers Anonymous, and it's changed my life. It definitely did, and for the better.
Anyone that's ever had an addiction listening to you say that will truly deeply feel what you're saying there, because that's the sort of narrative that goes on in your mind, and you're nearly fooling yourself. And we've seen so many different professionals speak about it, thankfully, and you putting your voice to that as well will really hopefully help a lot of people just turn that corner themselves. What was it for you that made you go, I can't do this? What was your kind of snap out of it moment, or was there one?
Yeah, well, there was a couple of episodes where, as I say, I was in Cheltenham, and it's a really personal story for me, but I look back on it now and I think this was the final nail for me, like, in terms of, so it was my daughter's birthday on the 4th of November. So she's up in Newcastle, and so I'm going to see her on the 7th or 8th of November. I can't remember what it was, a couple of days, like, and at the time, I'd gambled that much money, and you're thinking professional, I think I had £200 in my name. So that £200 was enough for me, petrol up to Newcastle, take my daughter out, get her a little present, take her out for something to eat, and get petrol back down, and then, the rest of the month would look after itself, as long as I get up. But I'd managed to convince myself, listen, I can make that £200 into £1,000. Do you know what I mean? That's the gambler's mindset. And I could get her a better present and take her to a nicer restaurant. She's 2-year-old, like, and I'm convincing myself that, taking her to a nicer restaurant and getting her, frigging whatever, a unicorn for her birthday. You know what I mean? It's just that mindset. And for me, and the day I went into the bookies, lost the £200, and luckily, I was able to ring my Grandad, which I'd done on many occasions, and lied about, made up a lie about, I needed, money for this and that, which, as a gambling addict, you do lie and you deceit. But for me, I just never forget getting in the car after and just thinking, like, this can't go on. That's a story that I tell in the meetings, when I went to Gamblers Anonymous. For me, that was like, that was my rock bottom. Sometimes you have to hit your rock bottom, don't you, to accept you've got a problem, or to want help. And for me, that was, my rock bottom.
And look at how you've bounced back. And, there's, for anyone watching this who's, I don't know, in a position where they're feeling they're close to their rock bottom, look at how you can bounce back. You hear so many stories about people in a bad place who make, one decision that they can never reverse. And I'm just, so glad that, you're here as an example of how someone can pick themselves back up and achieve amazing things. If you look at everything you've done since then, I mean, your family must be really proud of you. Your partner, your kids probably have no idea, but
No.
but everybody would be looking at you and hearing that, thinking, I never would have guessed it, because you're a success story. You're Northern Ireland international. You're what kids grow up and dream to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. And if it can give hope to anyone out there listening, if they are going through, whether it be gambling, drink, drugs, whatever, they're all tied in for me. And for me, the thought, even, I think I can remember back to 10, 11-year-old, when I used to go play on a Saturday football. Then I would go with my dad to watch him on the Saturday afternoon playing for Killyleagh or Saintfield, whoever it was. But you would always meet at the bookies, wouldn't you? And, your dad would put your 50p football bet on for you. And, so it was just the sort of, for me, it was sort of instilled in me, and I had it in me. And the thought of, when I was at the height of my addiction, the thought of being able to go a week without having a bet seemed like impossible. But I'm 6.5 years now without a bet, and it's like all from that going to that one meeting, Gamblers Anonymous. So, and it took a few days for me to build up the courage to go, and I accepted I did have a problem, but I just, it was just a pride thing, I think, just sort of, but it's honestly the best thing I've ever done. So if that advice to anyone out there with, if they are going through anything similar is, just speak, go out, get help, because it is the best medicine, just speaking. And, because there's thousands of other people going through the same thing who need the same help. And yeah.
It's really powerful hearing you say that. And, again, I was doing a thing with Roy Carroll a little while ago, and he shared his story, and it was really, we were meant to be having a chat about him joining Dungannon, and then we just got, we just kind of like this, it just kind of fell into that area. And when you hear it, there's so many similarities, or even when you read what Keith Gillespie's saying, people just don't imagine it of professional footballers. But you're right, there's like the culture of what seems like innocent little bets coupled with extra money and loads of downtime where you're on your own, and it can spiral, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not just I've got mates back home now who, one thing I don't like to do is preach. Yeah, it's great. I've been 6.5 years without a bet, but I don't want to be this messiah. And I see it in my changing room today at Motherwell. I know a couple of lads. I can just tell, I've been there. I've seen, I can just, by the way they speak. But as much as I want to help them, it's like I don't want to be this sort of preacher and going over and sort of. And the same with a couple of mates back home, and I know the bet maybe don't have an addiction, but they bet too much for what they earn, and it's just, I'd say they have a problem, yeah. But it's, at what point do you sort of stand in and help out, or just sort of, it's a tough one, because as I say, I don't want to be that sort of preacher mentality, and I think a lot of it has to come with them. But yeah, I just think in terms of whether you're a footballer, a bricklayer, or whatever, it's addiction doesn't. I'm not very well educated. There's a word.
It doesn't discriminate.
That is the word, discriminate. Yeah, it doesn't. So and it's, for me, I think anyone I spoke to who's been through it, and even Big Lafferty, and for him speaking out and going to meetings and speaking to people is just it's kept them from not betting for the old saying in betting is one day at a time, and all of a sudden that one day becomes a month, and that month becomes a year, and for me 6.5 years down the line. And if you're at the start of your journey, it might seem daunting, but just for me, just speak out and get help. Yeah.
Well, I admire you even more for sharing that. So again, thank you very much for doing that. And in terms of, you were saying until you had that moment at Sunderland, you were kind of content nearly, playing second fiddle because you're the Premier League club and all the rest of it. When do you feel like you really believed you were a first choice goalkeeper? That was the moment you thought, right, I need to go try something different. But when did you really sort of in your own head believe I'm a first choice goalkeeper, there's no going back?
Yeah, definitely when I signed permanent at Bury that time, I think 2 or 3 days after that episode thing, I went straight on loan to Bury for the rest of the season, and then I'd pre-agreed a 3-year contract as well, so it was like loan to end of the season, and then but I don't think it was the rest of that. I'd been to Bury before, done really well. I went back the rest of that season, and it wasn't until the next season where, literally you turn up pre-season, you've got number one squad number, and actually they made me vice captain. Richie Barker was the manager, and I was vice captain, and it was just, for me, that was the year where it's a strange feeling how your mindset changes in terms of not being cocky or egotistic, but just being the main man, having that, like, I'm the main man, I'm number one, and it makes you brings
You
that
puff
little
out
bit.
your chest a wee bit, and you sort of
Aye,
you can
without
feel
doubt,
it.
definitely. And yeah, so for me, it was at around about that time, and yeah, so it was an up and down period at Bury for me, and but these experiences, shape you into what you become, and I've every club I've been at, I don't have a bad memory from any club. I've enjoyed all of them, and always look out for results. And it's just so sad to see Bury, go out of business, and but I seen it coming. It was around about when I was leaving. It was these new owners were coming in, and it was destined to doom, like, because don't get me wrong, I'm all for ambition and high X, but sometimes a bit of realism as well at times. So, it's sad to see because the fans are great. It's just such a community family club, and I still speak to guys from there who used to do the programs, and a guy Morris Dixon, actually, an Northern Irish boy who done the commentary, and big Glen Tolan fan. So I still keep in contact with him, and it's just sad. They're devastated. They're still not over it. So it just shows you football. The dark side to it.
You're saying you still check results. You must have a few results to check. Then you've
I
had a
know.
few clubs, Trevor.
I have to be fair. Sometimes you don't really. Actually, just before come on tonight, I actually went on the Wikipedia, and I was like, I have had a few. Like, but I would say, take Brentford and Hull out. Lad, I played once for Brentford, and I sat on the bench at Hull for 3 months. So the soft spot's not there for them too. So the other 34 clubs, I'll just.
You're like the closest thing we have to Steve Claridge or someone like that.
Oh, I know.
When you kind of look back and some of the managers you've had, who would you say are the best at inspiring you and giving those team talks?
The best manager I've ever worked under is, like, I'll go, like, overall is Michael O'Neill. Like, without doubt, like, he's exceptional. It's hard to, people always ask about Michael how to explain, and obviously international, it's a lot about meetings, and you're in meetings a lot, and you're prepping for games a lot, and if someone says you're going away for 13, 14 days, and you're going to have 13, 14 meetings every night, if you were going to deliver them meetings, like, how to get your message across and keep everyone, but and I always remember reading Roy Keane's book, and he said about Sir Alex Ferguson, where in his 16, 15, whatever years at Man United, he never had one meeting where he come out and thought, I didn't learn something there, or I didn't. And I always remember reading it in the book, and maybe 2-3 trips being away with Michael O'Neill, the saying come back into my head, and every squad after that, nothing changed, where you just come out of a meeting and you've learned something, and you can bring Joe Bloggs in to say the exact same thing that Michael says, but it's just the way he delivers it, and he's just got this aura about him that, and he's, for me, he's just he ticks every box on the management side. He knows when to engage with his players, have a bit of crack. He knows when to stand off. He just gets a balance perfect for me, and obviously tactically as well, he's different class. But most of all, he's just a great fella as well. I'll never. He obviously gave me my international debut, which you might say I'm being biased, but it's certainly not because of that. If I never played one game under Michael, I went from trips for 3 years and never got a sniff with Michael, but still held him in the highest esteem. So, yeah.
Well, there was a couple of times he wanted to play and you got injured too, wasn't there?
Well, yeah, there was a couple of episodes where, but it's easy telling me after I was gonna give you 15 minutes there tonight, but no, but yeah, just as I say,
you don't mean managers have tricks, do you?
They're all straight as they come, aren't they?
Is that something you get used to as a player? Because, like, obviously, man management, they need to be able to play everybody the right way to get the desired outcome. And at the end of the day, football's a business too. But is that something you kind of get used to, and you go, right, well, that's the way he does it, and this is the way he does it?
It is, but when you're in the moment, perfect examples were Stephen Robinson. So my first year at Motherwell, it was a sort of fairy tale. Obviously, we got beaten the 2 finals, but to get the 2 cup finals, and it was a great year. Obviously, I had the Celtic episode where they've come in for me, and I was in the I've gone from getting relegated to Hartlepool in the space of 6-7 months. Celtic bidding 500 grand for me, getting the cup finals, on the brink of making my non-Ireland debut. It was just from so to go from that to then fast forward a year's time where I went through the blood clot, came back, pre-season, and pre-season in Scotland we play 4 League Cup games in group stages. So I was thinking, obviously Mark had done really well the previous year, and me and Robbo didn't have any conversations about the next season. I had a year left in my contract, Mark had another year, so it was one of them. It was sort of up in the air. I didn't, in my head I was thinking, have I got enough credit? Did I do enough to, maybe, is it going to be who performs best pre-season that will get the jersey, or, but I literally never played 1 minute the whole season. It was just it was ruthless from Robbo, and I was in his office so many times, and we had. But my next favourite manager after Michael O'Neill is Stephen Robinson. I speak to him. He's obviously left now, and I speak to him regularly still. When I was in the moment, though, I just thought, many a time I was in his office saying to him, is this personal? If it's something personal, you do get caught up in the moment at times, and it wasn't personal. It was just, he couldn't drop Mark. Mark was playing. Mark ended up getting a move to Newcastle. You know what I mean? So he was obviously doing something right. But in my head, it was and sometimes you get outside, your family, they're obviously going to be biased. You should be playing and stuff like that. And you can get caught up. And, me and Robbo had so many ding-dongs. And one thing about him, he never promised me anything. It wasn't, if Mark has a bad game, you're back. It wasn't anything like that. It was listen, this is how it is, and you're just going to have to, get on with it. And it was hard to take, don't get me wrong, but I appreciated his honesty, to be fair.
There's something to be said for that, isn't there? At the end of the day, they're the manager, and their decisions are final, I guess. But the fact that he's honest with you at least means you can look each other in the eye, and you can tell yourself, well, maybe I can get myself back in eventually. It might take a bit of luck, might take a bit of hard work, might be both. But obviously, eventually you got your chance to get back in with him, and it didn't damage your relationship by the sounds of it.
No, it definitely did. Don't get me wrong, there were times when... But in the end, the goalie coach had to come in and sit in on our meetings because they got that heated. But the way he put it was putting 2 fiery Northern Irishmen in the room together. It's just destined for disaster. But no, listen, a day later, we'd be head to head sometimes, not literally, but he's at one end of the table and I'm shouting, and it would be just not productive at all. But the next day we'd be laughing about it, and as I say now, I've got a great relationship with him, and what a manager, great fella, great manager, and just hopefully see him back in the dugout soon.
In terms of, you mentioned that Celtic move, because that was obviously a few years ago, and wasn't it that Celtic put the bid in, but the bid was rejected?
Yeah, that was a strange one as well, Michael, because Celtic I think they put 2 bids in, got them rejected, but Motherwell had always give Celtic a fee that they wanted. Celtic were willing to match the fee, but I think, from what I've been told anyway, Motherwell were sort of stretching it out because they had a goalkeeper. It was the day before the deadline, so Robbo's argument to me was, Trevor, I can't let you go and not have anyone coming in because, we weren't safe at the time, even though we were doing well in the cups. We weren't doing that great in the league. So Robbo's argument was, if you go and we don't get someone in, we'll get relegated, I'll get sacked, so I can't. So I knew they had a boy, Freddie Woodman. He's at Swansea now. He was supposed to come from Newcastle, but so he was on his way up, and he's actually got on the M74, and Aberdeen have come in for him as he's on his way to sign for Motherwell. So Aberdeen have come in for me. He's rang Motherwell, said, listen, I'm going to Aberdeen. Joe Lewis got injured the day before, so it just, it wasn't meant to be, simple as that. And again, I sat in with Robbo. The window was shut in about 2-3 hours, and still in my head I thought there might be a chance of this happening. But as soon as I sat with Robbo, and he just said, listen, if we sell it, like, it was with the chief executive, it was like, if we sell him, I'm resigning. Like, that's what he basically said. And because his argument was, he's a family to feed. He was in his head, if we'll let you go, and play a young lad and we'll make it relegated. So again, so there is times where you think, especially how my careers went the last couple of years, where you think, especially the financial side of it, because I have a young family, and the contract I was signed at Celtic would have been money of like nothing I've ever earned. It was a 4-year contract, and of course there's times you sit and think, if that happened, but again, you just torture yourself if you sat and thought about what ifs and this isn't that.
I laughed because I saw you say in an interview somewhere else one time, everyone was talking about Johnny Evans and Arsenal and Man City, but he was still on 100 grand a week.
I know. Exactly. He didn't. But it was like, I think I made a joke about, and my missus was raging about it because we actually never played it, but it was a joke about we played a game of let's see what we could have bought, after the win. What? And it sort of caught on. It made the papers and all. And I remember Rachel texting me saying, she was fuming because how it would have looked from the outside, but it was just a bit of.
She's like, we don't get on like that, and you're like, yeah, but it was funny.
I know, it would have been funny if it did. I know.
You mentioned the clot a couple of times. Deep vein thrombosis sounds absolutely terrifying, and certainly from what I remember hearing at the time, people didn't know whether you were going to be diagnosed with cancer. People, it was really, really scary those couple of days. Just how bad was all of that?
It was quite it wasn't a sort of sudden thing. It was a build up. When I first met up with the All-Ireland squad, that's when it started, because we played Rangers on the Sunday. I flew straight to Belfast Sunday night, and it was actually in the warm-up, the Rangers game, where I started feeling my shoulder. It was like a strange. I actually went in for my warm-up early because I was getting this strange feeling, and I've had shoulder problems before, so we sort of just thought, I've just aggravated it. But anyway, I went away with Northern Ireland, and I couldn't even sit on the bench on the Wednesday against Republic. We played them down in Viva in a friendly, and I was supposed to play 45 minutes, me and Bailey, but I couldn't even sit in the bench. I couldn't train, but I got wind that I was going to play against Austria on the Sunday, like Michael had sort of told me early in the week. So I just blagged it. I literally, like, my mum knew something was up because she sent my grand up to the hotel on the Saturday I was FaceTimed her a couple of times. She said she just seen in my face that there was something, like the colour of it. And
how mums always know, isn't it? The worst. It's the most annoying thing in the world. You could be like, I've flagged this. Mums see through it. Yeah,
it is. It's a mother's instinct. Like, and even so, she had come back with me after I played the Austria game. She flew back to Scotland with me. She was coming over for a couple of days, and it was on the Tuesday night. I dropped her back to the airport, and she just knew again. She said, like, Trevor, promise me you'll go to the hospital, and it was sort of right, just to put her mind at ease. It was like, right, I'll go, like, thinking, So I ended up going like late one night. I think it went about 10 o'clock, and it all happened so quick. I got my bloods took, and then my bloods came back abnormal, so I got sent to a ward, and it was like, in the space of 3 or 4 hours, it was like, you're going to have to go for further tests. And I just remember going for the scan. I think it was a CT scan or something, and I just remember the 3 ladies who were like the nurses, and at the start it was like, they were obviously Motherwell fans. They were chatting away and really chirpy, and I just remember the whole atmosphere in the room changing. That sticks with me, and them being like really sympathetic towards me, and like, so I panicked. So obviously they can see it in the screen, the scan, and So I went back to the ward, and then the doctor who came round, Doctor, I can't remember his name, but he was a Celtic fan. He was a real extravagant, like he was funny out there, pink tie, that sort of thing. Just a bit, great crack, and he kept the spirits high. But I remember him coming round with the results, and he was the one who said to me, like, listen, we were looking at your scan, we were 95% sure, like, it was cancer. Like, just he said, just the amount of dots, whatever. I'm not good at taking medical information in, but just when you heard that cancer word, it was like, it's still to this day, people say to me, why did the doctor, even Rachel, like, say, why would he tell you that? But it was like, I think it was probably just then when you're getting told you've got a blood clot, you're thinking, you're quite relieved to have a blood clot. And, it actually went into my lung as well. So it was a pulmonary embolism, I think they call it. So, that side of it was quite serious, because that's got a high fatality rate when it becomes a PE. So, I'm really lucky and fortunate. But again, it was one of them times where, I'm guilty of this, just sort of, I just bottle everything up and, don't, just get on with it. It's a blood clot, just get on with it. But it's probably not until you're out of it and you look back on it and you think, that was pretty serious.
Yeah, no, I've had family members have blood clots, and it's just a horrible experience, and I've heard the stories. So scary time, and like to be in a situation where a doctor's saying, well, the good news is we thought you had cancer, but it's not. It's just this other thing that might kill you. I'm being a bit gallows humor there, but how long did that take you to kind of come through and recover from? Because that in itself must have been exhausting. All of that.
Mentally it was, I think physically it was more, it was frustrating, because after a few weeks getting over the, the breathlessness and stuff, I actually felt, it's not like my knee injury now where you're injured, you know what I mean? If you stand up too long, the knee's sore, and there's something wrong. Whereas this, it was like, I feel fine, I feel great, but I'm taking these warfarin tablets, which means, I can't train basically. So
yeah,
I guess it was a frustrating injury, because, as I say, I felt physically like I could go out and I could run. I was on the treadmill every day. I was jogging, and I just couldn't do any contact. You know what I mean? And obviously, you need to do contact to play. So,
are you stubborn?
I'm very stubborn. Yeah, I think that's what's my downfall at times. Even this injury now, it's due to my stubbornness. Like, no, I'm fit. I'm able to play, and even though the physio said, Trevor, this is a 12-week injury, it's only 8 weeks. But yeah, I'm quite stubborn. But yeah, it was just looking back, it was a frustrating. It was just sort of, because you get a date when you're coming off the warfarin, so straight away I knew. I think it was 25th April, yeah. So from November when I got the clot, I knew this date when I'm back. So it was like, even with injuries, you don't get that date. You know what I mean? It's sort of how you feel. And so I had this date in my head. It was just like a countdown basically, and the time just dragged it. But yeah.
When you look at it, it looks like Motherwell, at that club, you kind of found your home. Does it feel like that? Do you feel very settled at Fir Park?
Yeah, without doubt, and if Cheltenham fans hear this, or Bury or Hartlepool, they'll all say he's he's a two-faced guy, because he said that here. But I don't know. I think it's more, I've been lucky at the clubs I've went to, where your Burys, your Cheltenhams, Hartlepool, Motherwell, they're like family clubs. I'm coming from a little village in Killyleagh, like, that's sort of something you crave. You know what I mean? Like, that sort of family nature where everyone knows everyone. You speak to the chef and the groundsman and the receptionist the same way as you speak to the lads. You know what I mean? Everyone's, when you have an end of season dinner, it's not just the players and staff, it's the whole club. So I've had that at all them clubs. So, and but just more so here now with, like, Rachel's up here, she's got a job she really likes and she's really settled, and Rex is at nursery, and just that, and it is 2 hours down the road. This is my daughter, but we make that work. I see her 3 nights a week, and it works. And so I guess everything, it just ticks all the boxes, and just really happy.
Well, that's obviously it's brilliant news to hear. You've got an exciting thing coming up as well now. You're launching your own football school.
Yeah, goalkeeping school. Me and one of the other goalies here, Scott Fox. So it's something we've been sort of toying about with for a while, but I guess he's out injured as well with serious knee injury, and just a lot of time in our hands. And we just thought, there's two arguments to it. You can say, when you're playing, you should be focusing solely on football, but I think at our level, we're not earning money, Michael. It sets you up for life. It certainly doesn't, but so you gotta think, and when little episodes happen, it sort of makes you think even more about what am I going to do after. And for me, the injury was that it was like, if I was to retire tomorrow, not that I'm going to, of course, but I'm so unprepared, and so for something like this, train kids a couple of nights a week and just build your experience, and see if it's for you first and foremost. You might not take to it, but it's just something we've thought about with, and the more we spoke about it, the more we seen like there's a great opportunity here, and so it's just something we've been working on for weeks now, and the website launches hopefully the next day or two, and so it'll be on the social media, everything about it, links for the website and stuff, and we're hoping to get up and run obviously after the kids go back from Easter, because there's enough training camps on and stuff like that, for parents are paying enough money out to send their kids, so you don't want to put any extra pressure on them. So I think after the Easter holidays, just sort of put the feelers out for it then and see what the demand is. So we're confident it'll be good.
Yeah, well, I think any Motherwell fan having the opportunity to have their kids coached by the pair of you would be delighted.
Yeah, hopefully.
I hope it goes well for you. What's your social media, just so people can find you if they don't already follow you?
I think my Instagram is TC24, and then my Twitter, I think it's the same. So I need to up my social media game because I'm so slack at it. But if you just type Trevor Carson in, but the name of the Goalkeeping Academy, we haven't launched their social media page. We're waiting for the website. It's FCGK1. So just keep an eye out for that. And obviously Fox Carson GK1. So it just has a bit of a ring to it. So yeah, just keep an eye out for it, and there'll be plenty of updates.
Brilliant. Well, that's exciting, and I really look forward to seeing how that goes for him. I'm sure it'll be a big success. Just before I let you go, just the thoughts on Northern Ireland's qualifying campaign at the moment. Nobody expected a win in Parma, so far from disgraced themselves in that game. And then the friendly was an opportunity to play a couple of different players, I guess. But what's your reading of the squad, and obviously Ian Barraclough in the World Cup qualifiers?
Yeah, just obviously the Italy one, as you said, nobody sort of expects, but when you put that second half performance in, I guess there would be a lot of frustration, coming away from the game thinking, a lot of what ifs, which, as a Northern Ireland fan, you get a lot of them, don't you? We've had games where we've went toe to toe with the big teams, and we lose it by the odd goal, or so it was. For me, it was a frustrating. It was an opportunity miss, I think, because we showed, especially the second half, like to go to a team like Italy and create chances like that, and but that's gone. So one thing you can do is take the positives out of it, and there was plenty there. So the Bulgaria game's massive. So just go in lab full of confidence, and as you say, a few boys getting the chance to perform the other day, and a couple of them done great. So that breeds confidence as well. And, it's great having I think for too long, the Northern Ireland team sort of picked itself, and you people like you could predict the starting lineup a week before the game. So so the more young lads coming through and pushing the senior players, the better for me. So it bodes well. But the Bulgaria game is massive.
It's huge now, isn't it? It looks like Bailey Peacock-Farrell's keeping the number one spot. Hazard obviously got the game against America. Well, do you think Barraclough will change it up at the last minute, or do you think Bailey's holding down the fort for the time being?
It's a tough one for me to say. Obviously, they're both great young goalkeepers, but for me, Bailey's number one. He's done more than enough in his young Northern Ireland career to show. I remember he rang me after the playoff game where he sort of blamed himself, and he rang me and I was on the phone to him, and I just remember saying to Bailey, like, you're so young, Bailey Peacock's going to be, make no mistake, he's going to be a Northern Ireland legend. He's going to get over 100 caps, and he's at the infancy of his Northern Ireland career, and there is going to be ups and downs, but he's going to be a mainstay for 10, 15 years to come, and it's so important that the fans get behind him and back him, because it's not, for me, it's not every year. He's a top talent, and I think we're lucky to have, I think I offer a lot to the international setup. Michael McGovern's, he's a freak. That's what I call him a freak. He just is. He's like Benjamin Button, man. He just never, he just never ages, but he's just so, in training every day, he's exceptional. Like, and he still gets so much to offer. And to have someone like that, as a backup, it's, we're blessed. And then obviously you've got young Connor as well, who's done great anytime he's been away. And obviously this year has been a big year for him in terms of, playing games at Celtic, and so he's going to be confident now as well. So I think it bodes well that there's competition now. But for the time being, I think Bailey's number one, and while he's number one, it's important everyone gets behind him and keeps supporting him and backing him, because, as I say, 10, 15 years down the line, we'll be looking at Bailey, and probably, for me anyway, putting him up there with the Mike Taylors, Roy Carrolls, and people who've served the country great. So.
Well, that's huge praise. So, I mean, you get to see him a lot closer than any of us do. We see him in the 90 minutes. You see him away from that. What is it that really lets you know that, I guess, that gives you that confidence to say it? It's
hard to, I wouldn't pinpoint one thing. Well, like there is, there's obviously he's 5-6 inches bigger than me, so there is saves he will make that I won't make, and everyone has their advantages, I would say, but for me it's just, there's no one particular thing. There's not like he'll catch the ball differently and you think it's not that. It's just this whole, he's such a young boy as well, and he's just got this aura about him, and people might say this arrogance, cocky. For me, you need to have that about you to be top level, and he definitely has it. He's such a nice lad as well. He's so humble, but he's confident in his own ability. But you only have to watch him in training. He literally does make saves that I'd need a step ladder to get to at times. But not doing myself. I think sometimes I forget he's my rival, but I'm begging him up here. But no, he's an exceptional talent for me. So yeah, I think we're lucky to have him. Yeah.
It's a wonderful problem for Ian Barraclough to have, isn't it, as well? And to be fair, we're talking about Bailey Peacock-Farrell and the big shoes that he steps into, all the great goalkeepers down the years Northern Ireland have had. You've already said Michael O'Neill, just an incomparably good manager. Big shoes for Ian Barraclough too, stepping up from the under-21s where he did a great job, and now taking over the senior team.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously I was in a few squads with Bar, and it's going to take time to get your ideas across, and one thing he was lucky with that maybe a lot didn't need changed, and and he could have come in with a bit stubborn and said this is the way I'm, but he did, he understood that he was smart enough to see that not a lot did need change. It's we were on an upward trajectory. Things were going great, and it's just been a tough time. Simple as that. I don't think results would have been if Michael was still in charge, there were tough games we had, and I still think with time, that, with the players we've got, and this, one massive thing that I worried about after Michael leaving, without knowing who was getting the job, was, the big thing we've got is just the harmony we've got and the atmosphere when you go away, and it's just a perfect team bonding, team setting, and you worry when a new manager comes in, can they take away from that? And that's one thing that certainly hasn't changed. It's as strong as ever, and with that, with that belief and camaraderie between the lads, and you've always got a chance, and I'm confident Barrow will do well, and I just hope he's such a nice guy as well, and you're desperate for him, to get his first win against, in 90 minutes, even though it was a friendly against the USA. But you hear reporters harping on about this, he hasn't won in 90 minutes, and you're just desperate for him to get that monkey off his back. And Michael's a perfect example. Look how long it took Michael to.
I know.
I remember being on the bench when Healy scored that free kick, and against that, and I think maybe if we had beat that game again, was it Azerbaijan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Healy hit the one on, and it's little things like that where I think Michael said himself before, if I'd lost that, he might have walked. You know what I mean? And so it's certainly not panic stations under Bar at the minute, but I'm sure he's fully aware that the Bulgaria game's massive, and but the lads are well behind him. From any squads I've been in, and they're desperate for him to do well. So fingers crossed. Exactly. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. The last thing I was going to say is, and I couldn't believe this, just how busy you are on an international camp. People think that you maybe sit about a wee bit and then there's training a couple of days and there's a match or whatever. But you can explain it better than I can. Even down to the different media obligations, you guys are flat out.
Is this when you thought I was standing you up the last time you wanted it?
Well, I've never shared that. Because we were going to record another time, and you were very, very busy. But they do have you on, whether you're chatting to comedians doing random quizzes, whether you're in front of the TV cameras being asked big, serious, scary questions, or whatever else. There's not really much downtime.
No, but I think I like that. For me, it's a good thing having all this, your schedule taken up, because there's nothing worse than, even when you go away pre-season with your club, and after training you're sitting in the room all day, and you're counting down the minutes to dinner, and then counting down the minutes to your snack before bed, and and it's good. But even when we're not doing stuff like that, the lads are always up playing pool together, and playing darts, and it's not, that's a big advantage we do have, where it'd be so easy just to lie in your room and laze about, but the lads would rather be up together having a bit of banter, and it's great for me. But it's certainly not a holiday. I keep telling my missus that when I go away with Northern Ireland, she thinks, these lovely hotels, but don't get me wrong, it is great, but it's not a holiday.
Do you know who I blame for that perception? Niall McGinn, because he loves putting a wee picture up of him chilling out, doesn't he? He loves a wee spa photo or something, and then everyone gets tortured.
He does. I think that's just for his birds. I think that's just to get let him know he's in a nice hotel.
It's very. That's the one thing. It really comes across to even us reporters. It's just how close all you guys are, which isn't a given in international football by any means. It does seem like over time something really special has been built there. A good bond.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, for me, it's just the perfect balance of even now, we've lost Big G and Aaron and Bronte and stuff, but the likes of Craig then, and boys who maybe weren't seen as a senior. Well, Johnny's always been seen as a senior, but even Michael McGovern, he's a bit older, but he was never a top, considered a top dog, or one of the big guns. But now he's they've become the top of the hierarchy now, and it's just it was you just keep the momentum going, if you know what I mean. it's easy keeping the momentum going on the pitch, but it's just as important off it, in terms of having that, introducing new players into the squad and, making them feel it's settled, because, I'm sure it can be daunting coming into, a new squad and thinking, but I'm sure sitting down at lunch with Big Lafferty, quickly put your mind at ease, and when he's trying to debag you, you tend to get your lunch and he's
I was going to say,
out.
Does sitting down with Kyle Lafferty put your mind at ease, or are you just constantly on edge? Because he does enjoy himself, doesn't he?
I was trying to explain to my brother about him, like, he'll ask you to go up there for a coffee 10 times and you finally say, right, we'll go up for a coffee. But it's never a relaxing coffee. It's like, you'll be saying, so you'll be looking at your phone and then you'll look up and he's like right in your face, like, just, when he's speaking to you, he goes like, he just can't, he's just a big kid. Like, it's, honestly, it's harder than having 2 children at home, like spending the week with big laughs, but, he's got a heart of gold, the big man, and, great character to have.
Scored some brilliant goals for Northern Ireland too, so fair play to him. But yeah, there you go. There's the headline. Harder than having 2 kids, Kyle Lafferty, and doesn't every single manager know it?
I know.
Trevor,
no, he always delivers for them. So
it's been so good catching up with you, and I'm really glad we got the time to do this. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers for having me, Michael. All the best, mate. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Michael Clark Show podcast. You can follow me at mclarkshow on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Check back every Wednesday for a brand new episode, which you can download as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also watch the entire interview via my YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/The Michael Clark Show. And if you like our theme song, it has been kindly provided by the brilliant SX70. Search for SX-70 on Spotify to stream their music. Until next Wednesday, take care. I'll speak to you soon.